Okay, in the last video we talked about the project, what it was, and we had a look around the house and what it was going to involve. In this video we're going to talk about the planning application and the processes that we've been through to get up to the point where we're actually ready to build. This is probably one of the most important phases. You can iron out a lot of problems here, and as I talk about what I've done, you'll find that I have actually ironed out a lot of problems, especially with the roof. That caused a tremendous amount of problems. First of all though, the pre-application meeting, I drew up some plans on Microsoft Word. They're very basic plans, they're not to scale, they just give the planning officer an idea of what you want to do. As you can see on there, a lot of the things have changed as we've talked about it and rejigged things. From that meeting he told us that he couldn't see any problems with getting planning permission granted. It was how he would expect it to be. He also told us that he wouldn't accept a flat roof and he would want a pitched roof, which is what I wanted anyway. So from there we then had to get an architect. One of the things that I've done is to just get an A4 size book, cheap book, costing about £1.50 from a local shop. And I keep in here everybody that I've spoke to, lists of names. I spoke to I think about 6 or 7 different architects, and I got prices ranging from about £600 up to £2,000. So very important that you do speak to different people. From there I got 3 of the architects in, and we chose Architectural Solutions, which is Graham Hill from Marple Bridge in Stockport. Excellent chap. The reason we chose him was because he had a little bit more vision, a little bit more flair and imagination, and he was giving us advice and tips as we went round. He was talking about things that he'd done in other properties, whether it would be useful to us. So he wasn't the cheapest, but he was one we were happy to go with. From there then he drew up the first set of plans, which come back something like this. The first set of plans are basically roughed out, really. It's your first ideas. We then had to sit down with them with a scale rule, measure up whether things will fit in. We found that 1 or 2 things weren't quite big enough, had to be rejigged, doors had to be moved about. We redrew all that on the plan as we wanted, gave it back to Graham, he talked about it. The initial roof plan we couldn't have the way we wanted it because there wasn't enough pitch on the roof, so that had to be redrawn. Again, we came up with a solution between us which we were all happy with. He then redraws the plans, gives them back to you, you have another look at them, you can change them again if you want, send them back, he'll redraw them as many times as you need to. We were more or less happy with those on the second occasion, so from there it went off to the planning office for planning permission. Now they have to reply to you within 6 weeks. At that point we had to pay them £150. They have to write to your neighbours to make sure they have no objections. They post them on the internet and at the local library so people can go and look at them. From there they'll tell you whether planning permission is granted. We got a letter back saying it wasn't not granted, but there were certain conditions attached. So one of them was that we had to make the driveway wider to accommodate 2 vehicles. One other thing that the Stockport Planning Office now asks for is a survey on the energy efficiency of your property. So have you had cavity wall insulation, you have a condensing boiler, dual flush toilet, all that type of thing. We have most of that already, and a lot of it, in fact all of it and more besides, will be built into the extension as well, so extra insulation, stuff like that. So that's one thing they ask for, that has to be filled in. So So they asked for the driveway to be widened. That had to be resubmitted then with the new plans. They also want the driveway to be of a porous type, so in other words not concrete. Block paving's fine because the water can run through it, and it has to run off there into a soakaway rather than into the surface water drains. So things like that came out. So we resubmitted the plans with the driveway on, and they were then approved. And you get a letter back from the planning department saying that full planning permission has been granted. From there then the architect does the second phase of his work, which is to draw up the building regulations plans. Now, as you can see, these are slightly different. The building regulations plans have all the detail and specifics about what the building will involve. It tells you what type of insulation to put in, and everything really that you need to build your property. It's got details about how the gutter must run, because this has a gutter between two pitched roofs, a bowing gutter. So things like that are in there. Now at this point, when you've got the building regulations plans, you can get your builder in to give you estimates. Now it's a very good idea to get at least 3 estimates off builders, and a good point to note that is if your builder says he doesn't need these plans to give you an estimate, don't touch him with a barge pole. These plans tell the builder exactly what he has to do, what's involved in the build, and he cannot give you an estimate without these plans. So get 3 estimates. They will vary wildly. In this particular case, I'm project managing the build, and I'm also going to do a lot of the work myself. So the drains, the foundations. I'm going to get a brickie in to do the wall, providing the price is right. Otherwise, I'll do it myself. And also a labourer. I'll be doing the labouring for him. I've got a builder who is a friend of mine, so I can trust him. He's going to help me with the roof, and after that I'll do pretty much of it myself. The electrician has to come in because you need a certificate at the end of it. And most electricians, if they're worth the salt, they won't just give you a certificate, so you need to get an electrician in. I'm probably going to get a plumber in to do the central heating, but fitting the bathrooms and stuff I'll most likely do myself. But do get a builder in to give you an estimate. Like I say, make sure you get at least three quotes. Now, in this particular case, we had to also employ the services of a structural engineer. He drew up these plans of the roof, and what we discovered was that we needed some structural steelwork building into it. He puts on the exact sizes of the steel joists that need to be used, how they need to be fabricated together. We then had to have an on-site meeting because he rested one of them on the timber wall, which he didn't realise, and one of them was on a brick pillar, but there's no floor to support the brick pillar. Again, he didn't know off the plan, so things changed slightly. Now, when I got my build around, we discovered that one of the pieces of structural steel work, if we did it the way the plans had suggested, it would actually come at chest height through a doorway. Now, obviously that isn't acceptable, so we had to get the engineer back in, rejig things. Now, that's going to save us a lot of time when we come to doing the actual build. And also, can you imagine if that structural steel work had turned up as it was, it didn't fit, it would then have to go back to the steel fabricators, it would cost more money to put it right, and also it would delay the project for maybe up to about a week or possibly even longer, and it's time that we just don't have on these type of projects. So again, the planning stage, very, very important. Get your build around, discuss things, have a look at it. One problem solved will create another problem, that's for sure. Work through them, and by the time you come to do the build, you will save a lot of time, and you will also save a lot of money. Now, another thing that has to be done is the building regulations plans then have to go up to the town hall for approval to make sure the extension is going to be built in line with building regulations. You have to pay £170 at that point for that to be done, and then another £200 for the building inspector to come out. We've chosen to go down a slightly different route, which is open to you, and we've chosen a private building inspector who is authorised, if you like, by the local authority. Now, the fees for the private building inspector are around about £540. The fees to the local authority come to £370. So although it is a little bit more expensive, in the long run it's going to be worth it because I'm doing a lot of the work myself. So as it's been said to me, the private building inspector is going to be part of the team as opposed to somebody who's just going to rubber stamp stuff. So that is something you can think about, especially if you're doing a lot of the work yourself. I've already spoken to him a couple of times about how to do the drains, what he's expecting, what he'll approve and what he won't approve. So it's already starting to be worth the money. So once we've got building regulations approval, we're basically ready to go. There's a couple of things you have to do at that point. When you get full planning permission granted, you get a letter which you have to fill in and send back to them and tell them when you propose to start. So that's been sent off. I also had to tell my private building inspector, give him notice of when it was going to start. Something else you need to look at is the Party Wall Act. Now, in our case, we're actually attaching onto the neighbour's party wall, so we had to comply with that. But it may worth be looking if you're digging close to the boundary between yourself and your neighbours, but also if you're digging down past or close to your neighbour's foundations of their property, you'll need to comply with the Party Wall Act as well. In those circumstances, if you type in a search into Google for the Party Wall Act, you'll find, you should see in the list one called www.communities.gov.uk. Click on that link, click on the link that says Party Wall Act, and it'll take you to the actual act itself, and you can download all the letters, you can download the booklet. It'll tell you exactly what you need to do and the circumstances where you will need to comply with the Party Wall Act. So that's something certainly you need to look at. Well, not a lot of people know about that one either as well. Okay, so one other thing that I've had to do is I've had to get my gas meter moved. It's in a wall that's going to be demolished, so I've had to move it to the front of the property. For the Northwest region, it's National Grid that do that. I've had to fill this form in. I've done that online. I've got to fill it in now and send it back to them as acceptance of their quotation. So that's something else again that you can do. You can plan before all the work starts, get that moving so that it ties in with when the outside wall goes up. I also need to get the box delivered to the wall for that to be built in. That's about it really for the planning stage. I know it's been a bit boring, but thanks for bearing with it. Hope there's been some useful information in there. On the next video is where you get the action, where we're actually going to start the digging and start digging down to the drains, getting the foundations in. So hopefully it'll be a bit more interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.